Welcome back to part 3, the final part of our special on Mount Rushmore series. So basically what we're doing, Jake and Rohan, welcome back, is going through every club, looking at the most iconic players to ever pull on the Guernsey to come up with a Mount Rushmore. So 4 of the most iconic names for each club.
It's been fun.
It's been fun. It's been a big day. You can get the prior 2 parts if you haven't listened through. They are available wherever you get your podcasts. They'll be on YouTube. They'll be on socials, at Footy Tips on Twitter, wherever you want to get them. But it is time for the final 6 clubs, and we are at a...
And I want a big finish from both of you blokes. You know, forget
we're
the long
keeping the eyes
day
open
stuff.
here.
We're hanging in there.
But we do need to get to one club. So interesting. This is an interesting club. So Port Adelaide is the first cab off the rank here. Now, we
a
need
little
to do
bit
some,
of a caveat. Yeah.
Yes. The caveat is we're not including the Sandful years. So I think when you talk about like VFL, AFL, and we'll get rinsed in comments and on socials about the Vic Bites and all that kind of stuff, but they are an inherently different club, and the Port Adelaide Magpies have their own success story and their own history, and there are some, all-time greats of the game amongst those Hall of Fame legends, Russell Ebert, Foz Williams, these kind of guys. So we understand and we do know we are looking at Port Adelaide power and the history that they've had in the AFL, and
It's AFL. I think it's pretty clear the way in which this has been done is
because there's other, then Fremantle people start saying, what about South and East Fremantle?
Yes.
And that's, sorry, anyone that caught me just sort of, I wasn't scoffing there. Port Adelaide, the Sandful version. I actually watch a lot of old Sandful footy on YouTube in the off-season.
why does that not surprise me?
Well, I don't know. I go down rabbit holes, but I'm a big fan of old South Australian football. Port Adelaide.
Yes.
Or maybe we can do a special at some point and attack
Stop
those
suggesting
ones.
specials.
Great Sandful grand finals of the 70s and 80s. I'm your man.
There you go. Keep an eye out for that.
So it is the power.
Yes,
Port
the power.
Adelaide power.
Kick us off.
We'll start. It's probably been said 2 or 3 times already. I think you said it for Pendlebury as one of the players I love watching, and you said it for David Mundy as a player that I really admired the way he carried himself and his personality. But in terms of favourite player that didn't play for my club, it might be this guy, Robbie Gray. He is...
Is he number 1 on your list?
I always joked. I think it's a coin flip between Robbie Gray and Alan Didak. They were 2 players I always wanted to play for my club. I love the way they played.
Somehow I'd expect that. I wouldn't expect that from a single other person in the football media, but I somehow expect it.
Why is that?
I'm just quirky. There's something quirky about your favourite thing.
There's nothing
Could have
quirky
been
about
Chris
Robbie
Judd,
Gray.
West Coast.
He was phenomenal.
Was.
Smart, so skilled. 271 games, which is the 4th most for Port. 367 goals, 2nd most for Port. 3-time best and fairest, 4-time All-Australian. Led Port's goal kicking twice. Was the AFL-CA Best Player of the Year in 2014. A year that people thought he could win the Brownlow medal.
That's right.
And something else which I think really does add to his legacy. I know you joked before when I mentioned the Anzac medal, but 5 showdown medals. That might not be broken, that rec. 5?
5.
5's a
Only
big
2 clubs
number.
are in the running for that medal every
Yeah, I
year.
know, but you got 46 players competing for
That's 5 more than Courtney Joss.
I think you're spot on. I think what he was able to do in multiple parts of the ground, wizard in front of goal, and broke hearts on so many occasions of other clubs.
Yeah, one of the most clutch
broke
our hearts.
Clutching
your hearts.
Yeah.
He did break our hearts. One of the best after the siren
Finishes
goals of all time, from the boundary.
But it wasn't just that. It was just his ability to hit the scoreboard at times that his club needed it.
He was the ultimate clutch player. Delivered in second halves. I think he had a 4 or 5 goal quarter against the Crows in a showdown. Delivered late, kicked big goals, as you said, and he's another player that we spoke. Toby Green, a player that. There were big periods where it's like, well, is he a midfielder or is he a forward? And he was exceptional at both.
True. A really good argument. In fact, I was going to say, I don't have him number 1.
Yeah.
Very close.
Go
on.
Can I just really quickly on Gray before we move on?
Here
You're
we
going
go.
to get mad at me now. Where does he sit on... Does he get on the Mount Rushmore of colour names?
I thought you were going to say of mine. Yeah. I mean, I've done no research on that.
Isn't the Brisbane?
Yeah,
That's the Brisbane. Black,
Darryl
brown, white. They had a green too.
They have a
Josh
green?
Green.
Yeah.
A bit later on, yeah. Apologies, I derailed that very
Yeah, we'll have
so
to.
not number one.
We'll have to get back to you on that one.
Well-
I think the number one's probably a toss-up between these two, and I'm guessing you've gone the other guy.
Daryl Poole.
We're losing the body.
It's getting a bit late in the day. Actually, he was a reasonable player, Daryl Poole. Treaders. Warren Treadray, 255 games, 549 goals, 1 premiership, 8-time leading goal kicker,
Skipper.
4 best and fairest as a key forward.
Yep.
I think that's really impressive. 4 All-Australian. Yeah, and skipper of
Was Warren Treadray a better player than Matthew Pavlich?
No, but he was right up there. He was, and gee, I remember his start too. I still remember in his first season, I think 98, Port had they played your boys Carlton out at Princes Park, and Treaders was on fire, and I think he dislocated his kneecap, but he was just. He was young and he was mobile and great goal sense and good overhead and had a real confidence, a real swagger about him, which he's still got really.
I'm not fussed on the order if you want to argue over the order of those two, but I think they're pretty comfortably up there.
Yeah,
I'm
1 and 2.
Yep. 1A and 1 and 1A, or whatever you want to call it.
I would say if I put 2 together here, my 3 and 4 are sort of similar in the terms of longevity does end up being the clincher for both of them, really. And that's not to disrespect how good they've been, but I'm talking here about Travis Boak, 348 games, phenomenal amount of games, 2 best and fairest, 3 All-Australian gongs, still going strong. And the other one...
And just on Boak, he's the longest serving captain of the club as well.
Yeah. And the other one, still going strong.
In the AFL era.
Yes.
Must have.
Still going strong in another way. Kane Corns, 300 games, premiership, 4 best and fairest.
Yeah.
2 All-Australian and unsurpassed in creating multimedia clickbait.
Yeah, but I think, in all seriousness, I think with Kane Corns, that's what he's become known for now.
Which is a shame, really, isn't it?
We were sort of saying before about someone like John Worsfold, where it's like, well, you kind of forget, this generation doesn't realise...
More on that later.
Sorry, not John Worsfold, John Longmire. I knew it was a somewhat recent coach. John Longmire.
Yeah.
You forget his playing career. I think a lot of players people of my generation probably do, and I think the same can be said for Kane Corns, where you look at him now and what he's doing, and you kind of dismiss what he did as a player. But he's well and truly.
Oh, he's one of the great run with players of the
absolutely.
Of
and I think
era.
I think what sums him up. I think the best and fairest are important for everybody, but I think for someone that did his role to win the best and fairest 4 times showed how good he did it and how well he was valued and respected at the club for what he did. I think it means even more for that type of player. It's like defenders winning a best and fairest. It shows how much value they have because everyone knows the midfielder or the guy kicking 100 goals is going to get it. But I think he's definitely on it. And 300 games as well. And there's only 2, I believe there's only 2 players for Port that have reached the 300, and it's Boak and Corns. So,
games aren't everything. We've discussed on this podcast a few times already in the previous parts. Go back and get those wherever you get your podcasts. We've discussed, there are occasions where the, who was it who had 90 games only?
Well, John Coleman.
Yes, exactly. And there was Peter Hudson about that.
120.
And so, you might need to dig a little bit deeper for clubs that are a bit younger. And we have done this with the Suns and with... And there are players that are dual club players. That
I know where you're going with this.
Yes, and I'm just wondering if he's in the conversation.
Absolutely, Gavin Wanganeen in the conversation. In fact, I, at one stage, had him in. And in the end, probably got squeezed out by longevity. But
another captain.
173 games support, 2 All-Australian support, 1 best and fairest, and 1 premiership.
Yeah. But the Brownlow goes to the Bombers.
Yeah, and if, how many seasons at Essendon?
Was it only
6. seasons.
Yeah,
with
6
Essendon.
I
seasons.
didn't think it was that long.
Yeah, 90,
So
91
he was
to
comfortably
96.
a Port Adelaide player longer.
Yeah.
But the accolades maybe, I mean, they're split pretty evenly, but you could probably say the Brownlow tips it over the edge towards Essendon, but he's not getting on that one.
Yeah.
It's probably it's interesting, isn't it? You think, how do you think of Gavin Wanganeen? And
See,
I think of Port
as a
is
younger
very
person, I
solid.
think of him as a Port player.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think of that, the season he had in 93 when he won the Brownlow and the twisting, turning, diving marks in the back line for Essendon. He became a different sort of player, but a really versatile player.
Very
too.
versatile
Think how
player.
good he was for them in that 04 premiership
Yep.
win. So he's right up there. And in terms of talent, absolutely he's on that list, but
Yeah.
just gets squeezed out for me by
the
the
other guys.
longevity
And I
of
think that's
Corns
fair.
and
Other
Buck.
names you could possibly throw up. Justin Westhoff, in terms of longevity and being able to deliver,
Well,
third all
you're a
time.
big
I
rap
mean,
fan,
he
weren't you?
loves stealing my thunder, doesn't
Oh,
he?
yeah.
This guy
Shucks,
over here. Westhoff, I mean, he's another one. How many players out there can boast 13 games and 13 goals and not
Yeah.
really going to get a look in?
And how many people would pick that?
No,
Justin
Yeah.
no,
Westhoff?
he's one of the most unassuming, kind of just built this. He's built a great career, or did build a great career. He's another one. Chad Corns is another player.
Yeah.
The Burgoynes. So there are a few players.
Burgoynes, both, great players both. I mean,
Spot on.
Sean probably more obviously at Hawthorn, but Peter was a great player.
Yeah. But hard, I think very hard to squeeze these guys in. I think it's... Look, I would go Gray, Treadray, Boat Corns. You seem to be putting Treadray first. I'm not too fussed.
Treadray, I'm happy to side with that and go Treadray.
Treadray, Gray, Boat Corns.
Can I just put an asterisk next to Chad Corns simply for his taste in music, which is just far and away the best of any recently retired AFL
Take him out for
So,
lunch then.
Richmond, it's time to look. We are going to move on to the next club. So, the Richmond Tigers.
Oh, tough.
This is tough. Tiger
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah, it might be the toughest. I think.
Really? Might be the
Yeah,
toughest?
I think so. Do
you reckon?
Yeah.
Couple of walk-ups. And again, we talk about iconic names in the past, but the recent era of success, it's so recent.
Yeah.
And it's-
how much weight do you give
And
it?
it's not like it's one flag. It's a dynasty.
It's a dynasty.
So it
Yeah.
deserves to be recognised.
Rowan, I'm interested in your thoughts for the first picked.
The first pick, well, icons don't come any bigger than this, really. It's Jack Dyer, Captain Blood. It's probably arguably the most iconic name in
Nickname,
football,
yeah.
Captain Blood. 311 games, 2 premierships, Hall of Fame legend, twice leading goal kicker, 5 best and fairest. Tough, famously tough. Played in the ruck, pretty mobile, went forward, kicked goals. Played more predominantly forward as a younger player, but part of that dragging of Richmond into a successful era in the 30s and 40s, and people of my vintage came to know him on World of Sport and league teams, and his banter with Lou Richards and Bob Davis and etc. But anyone who saw him play and subsequently wrote about it, and I read a lot of that stuff, they just, the reverence
Yep.
in which he is held.
Iconic Richmond name, yeah.
No bigger. And that is some call in itself when you consider, one in particular other name that's on this list who, I don't know, should I press on and do the name 2 on the list?
I'm comfortable with
Absolutely.
number 1, so I
Yep.
think press on.
Well, number 2 for me is very obvious as well. And again, Icon's not a lot bigger than this, and fortunately still with us and been doing it tough lately. So big hello to Kevin Bartlett. But a great, just an incredible player, incredibly durable midfielder. Later on a half-forward flank, won the 1980 Norm Smith medal, kicked I think 21 goals for that in 3 finals in that final series at the age of 34.
It's a remarkable career stat line and all the numbers you read. They don't even... When you read what he achieved, his games, his goals and all those numbers, it don't really make sense.
No, well, let me finish off on that. So 5 premierships, Hall of Fame legend, 1 Norm Smith medal, 4 times leading goal kicker, 5 best and fairest. But for all that, the biggest, and I would have seen probably 80% of his career. The biggest comment on KB for me, and it was really made clear, I wrote this piece to The Age about 10 years ago. We decided to rank the greatest finals players of all time. He was so far and away number one on the list. And I'll tell you
Talk
why.
about Robbie Gray and clutch players, right? Big
Well,
moments.
he played, I may be one or two out here, but my memory is he played in something like 29 finals, and in, I think, 25 or 26 of the 29 finals, he was named among Richmond's best 6 players in the game. That's that's like a
Remarkable.
strike rate of over 90% in the matches that mattered most. And he won 1 Norm Smith medal. I know the AFL record did a retrospective Norm Smith thing in 2001 where all the matches that they had complete vision for, so it was from I think 63 up to 78, the year before them. I did the 68 medal. Crappy game, and Carlton beat Essendon just to rub salt into the wound.
But do they count?
No, they don't. But
Interesting exercise.
but they were given a fair bit of weight. Anyway, KB won the 73 one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think was runner-up in the 69 win of theirs as well. So just time after time, so consistent, so durable. Love the goal. Incredibly fit.
Iconic celebration. The
very
image as
iconic.
well.
Something I learned about KB doing this was he was Richmond captain in 1979.
Yeah.
Captained them for 1 year. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. There was a time there. There was a chance he might have ended up at Essendon. Actually, I know there were discussions.
You'd have been happy.
I was 14, but the 14-year-old me would have been happy at that prospect.
You talk about iconic nicknames of the club as well. Hungry.
Yeah.
It's up there as one of the better ones in footy as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and massive, and then went on to establish a media career as good as his playing career. So much so that KB's in the MCG Media Hall of Fame. Just an icon.
So we got Dyer, we got Bartlett, and I think then we roll on to the modern era, and I think it's Dusty. I think Dusty's the next guy you're putting on this Mount Rushmore. He is one of the greatest players of the modern era, and I'm calling the modern era the last 25 years, and I think he's still easily in one of the best players of that period of time.
No doubt.
3 premierships, and obviously the 3 Norm Smith medals, which is just, I don't know if we've said that about another player.
Well, there hasn't been another player.
Is he the only one
Yeah.
to do it?
Stand alone.
only 3 times.
The image as well. It's Dusty. He is Richmond and has had opportunities. And there's still time permitting in his career that he may decide to do something like that. But at the end of the day, he's a Richmond man through and through, to borrow a dinner phrase.
Yeah, even if he didn't play another game, he's still on it. I mean, the Brownlow medal in 2017. The 2017 season will go down as one of the best individual seasons of all time.
Yeah, well, Lee Matthews, the credibility doesn't come any higher. Lee Matthews has called that the greatest individual season he's ever seen.
To win Premiership, Brownlow, Norm Smith medal, every other award up for grabs, basically, and do it while, whatever, I think he was averaging about 30 disposals and a goal and a half a game.
A couple of fend-offs.
It was pretty remarkable. So as it stands right now, 289 games, 328 goals, top 10 Brownlow votes all time. He's on it.
Just on the Norm Smith, famous last words, but I think the only 3 two-time winners are Gary Ayres, Andrew McLeod and Luke Hodge.
Yep.
So, he's definitely the only
I mean,
three-time winner.
it's
it's
I
rare
hadn't thought of it,
company.
but you don't say 3-time Norm Smith medal too often.
No, exactly. And that for me is huge. Like,
he's the ultimate big game player.
I'm always, I do probably have a bit of anti-recency bias, but then I look at someone like that and I look at the numbers and I look at the 3 Norm Smiths and I've seen his career and I just think, you deserve to be on it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and we've got him 3 at the moment. Yeah,
So number 4 is going to be interesting because I'm going back again and I think you want to stay contemporary.
I think you can make the case for both. So we've mentioned 3. We haven't even got to Jack Titus. 970 goals.
Skinny.
294
There's
games.
another iconic nickname. What is it? Richmond iconic nicknames.
2 premierships, 2 best and fairest, 11-time leading goal kicker at the club. So we haven't mentioned him yet, so he's in consideration for the 4th spot. The guy I want to bring up, and I've got a very funny feeling that this is going to end up being similar to the Luke Hodge debate, but Trent Cotchin, and he feels similar to Hodge.
Very interesting discussion, isn't it?
So he's another triple premiership captain, and there aren't many of those. Brownlow medalist as well, which people obviously forget about. He was a one-time All-Australian, 3-time club best and fairest. And I say he's similar to Hodge and maybe even Selwood as well, where they are the captain and they lead the club to success in a dominant period. But probably never the best player on his team. And if he was, maybe only for a year or two.
Well, can I... no, it's not to be sneezed at, but can
And sorry, 306 games as well, 141 goals. I mean, he's got to be... I know it's hard to put 2 from this era, but it was a bloody good era.
It was. Can I trump that, though, in my view, with a dual premiership captain, who is also a Hall of Fame legend, which is, again, only 31 of them, twice leading goal kicker,
I do...
2 best and fairest, and a 4-time premiership winner.
You can, but I would say the legend status in the Hall of Fame is unfair to be used against the current player because they're ineligible for that.
Yes.
But I think everything else is fair enough to compare.
I will say, I'm prepared to say this guy won't be a Hall of Fame legend.
Who?
No,
Cochin.
your guy. Yeah. As good as he's
Martin
been.
will be.
I think Martin will be. I don't think Trent Cochin will be. And that's Hall of Fame legends.
There's only
31 of them. So all those Richmond people,
regular old Hall of
you
Famer.
hate Cochin. No, I don't hate Cochin. I just don't think he's one of the 31 best
Vanilla Hall of
players ever.
Famers.
So, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Oh, sorry, who you're
No,
talking
I
about
don't know who
now?
you're talking
Go
about.
on.
I'm talking about Royce Hart.
Yeah, I think Royce Hart's an iconic Richmond name as well.
Sorry, sorry, I thought,
Yeah, and again, you know, what is it about Richmond and icons? Really, if you're talking purely on, you know, who defines Richmond, for me, you go Dyer 1, you go Bartlett 2, you probably go Royce Hart 3.
Ahead of Martin still?
Yeah.
Really?
Look, I was young, but there was no bigger star in football than Royce Hart when I was a kid. And what a great player. He was a very mobile centre-half forward. His sort of signature thing was coming in sideways into the marking contest. Famous big mark, I don't know if you've seen it, 67 grand final, big hanger over, I think Roy West, the Geelong player in Richmond's famous 67 grand final win. Captain of those 73, 74 sides. You know, I saw him, I was there, I saw him come off the bench on one leg and win Richmond the 73 preliminary final against Collingwood after they were 6 goals down. Then they famously beat Carlton the next week. I mean, he is inexplicably linked to what was Richmond's greatest era, but a superstar. And, you know, the famous stories about the lengths Richmond went to recruit him from Tassie and his famous sort of confidence. He wrote a book and put himself in the greatest side he'd ever seen. And,
well, he was named in the AFL's team of the century, was he not?
Yeah.
And look, to do this from 187 games at the Tigers, I think is, you know, we've talked a few times on this podcast about maximising the talent that some of these guys had in this shorter amount of time that they had on the park. Yeah. And he fits the bill.
Yeah, and in the end, I mean, I'm just trying to remember, he sort of finished up about midway through 77 and his knees, he had a lot of, even in 73, I'm talking about that captain, he had big knee issues then. So they cut him down really and prevented him playing even longer than he did. But you cannot overstate how big a superstar Royce Hart was. So he, for me, gets in comfortably.
I think another player that is very similar to Tom Hawkins, who we spoke about with the Cats earlier, is Jack Riewoldt. So fellow key forward of this era, 3 premierships, 3 All-Australians, 3 Coleman medals, 2 club best and fairest, 12-time Richmond leading goal kicker, 347 games, 787 goals. I think Jack Riewoldt, people will maybe not scoff, but when you say the name, I don't think anyone says, yeah, he'll be in it or he'll be close to it. If he's not in it, he's very close.
No, I think it's
and I would argue Matthew Richardson might be probably more iconic Richmond, but I think Jack Riewoldt deserves to be in ahead of him, and not just because of the 3 premierships, but I think the longevity. I mean, he's played another 60 plus games. I mean, he's done it in a better side too. So they're both 12-time leading goal kicker of the club. Richo and Riewoldt. Yeah. I mean, splitting hairs there.
Yeah.
But I think they're probably both going to miss out.
The other name that should at least be mentioned, otherwise we look silly, I think, is Francis Burke.
Yes, Francis Burke.
And again,
not a lot of defenders have been thrown up for this list, but he's one that should definitely be at least discussed.
Iconic.
Yeah.
And really only finished off as a defender. I mean, he made his name initially as a wingman, a famous Richmond centre line of Burke, Barrett and Clay, which were, was part of that 67, 69 premierships. 300 games, 5 premierships, Burke, 67, 69, 73, 74, and was still going in 1980. Won a best and fairest, and of course, you think about iconic football images, the famous one of him with his face cut at North Melbourne, blood streaming down his face at Arden Street, wipes the blood away with his jumper, goes back and kicks a goal. It's... so when you think about iconic football images, that one is right up there. So may not make it, but it's very close.
It's tough. Michael Roach, 200 games, 607 goals.
Kevin Sheedy, the back pocket plumber.
Kevin Sheedy. Geez, it's tough.
Tough.
So what are we doing? Where do we land on this?
I think Cochin's stiff, unfortunately.
So Cochin is going to... So who have we got instead of Cochin?
You cannot have Cochin. Well, for me...
Hart.
You cannot...
Dyer, Bartlett...
Yep.
Dusty Martin and Hart.
Can you give me Hart's numbers again quickly?
187 games, 4 premierships, twice leading goal kicker, 2 best and fairest, Hall of Fame legend. When I say twice leading goal kicker, he's a centre half forward, not a full forward. And that meant something back then.
He's battling with himself internally.
You can't have Cochin.
I'm happy with Royce.
You will be burned at the stake at Punt Road, Jake, if you sanction.
You're making out like I'm trying to put in.
Well, you are.
Josh Caddy.
No. But I would be. Look, I could be wrong, but I'd be amazed if a majority of Richmond supporters thought that Trent Cotchin was more worthy of being on their Mount Rushmore than Royce Hart.
Tigers fans, let us know, because there's no right or wrong answer. This is the beauty of this exercise.
Triple premiership captain, Brownlow medalist, All-Australian, 3-time best and fairest, 300 games.
Let's keep moving. We need to keep moving.
Well, hang on a minute. Well, we have to settle. So
we've settled.
I thought we settled.
I've been outvoted?
You've been outvoted.
All right.
Let him know.
Trent Cotchin and Luke Hodge, triple premiership captains that both got snubbed.
Well, they're on the Mount Rushmore.
Do it again in
captains.
10 years when I'm at the Sunnyvale Retirement Village and you've got free reign.
St Kilda. Look, again, one of these older clubs, they're not easy to get through. And St Kilda's kind of more unique in terms of its Victorian perspective. It hasn't had a lot of success in terms of actual premiership success. They've had successful eras and they've had successful names and they've got iconic names.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is a little bit of an open slather and we can go anywhere from quite long ago to quite recent.
No, you can. And really well summed up because they have, despite the lack of premiership success, they have had some really good eras. And obviously Ross Lyon more recently, but, the early 90s, they were very competitive. The early 2000s under Grant Thomas.
Yep.
Even the era in which they won that flag, 66, they were consistently playing finals from 65 to, 74, 73, So, all right, so I haven't actually settled on an order here, but I've got a short list of 6 names.
I got 8 names, but I think it's pretty clearly going to be down to 5.
Okay, well, who? It's interesting, isn't it?
Well, let's get the easy one off the board first and foremost. And
so you think there's one? Do you think there's one standout? Do you?
Oh, I think so, and I think
who is it?
I think it's Plugger. 2/3 of his career goals were at the Saints. So
we're talking about Tony Lockett for younger viewers. We shouldn't assume everyone knows who we're talking about.
Yeah, so he obviously played, and we're going to get to Sydney soon. But
or if you're Tim Webster reading the Channel 10 Late News, Plunger.
Plunger, that's good. Yes, apologies.
But yeah, so just looking again in isolation at his time at St Kilda, 183 games, 898 goals.
Jesus.
An average of almost 5 per game. Best goal kicker the game has seen. He has kicked the most goals of anybody if you're taking into his consideration his whole career. Brownlow medal, 10 times St Kilda leading goal kicker, 2 club best and fairest. The year that stands out to me is 1991, where he kicked 127 goals in 17 games.
Yeah.
That's an average of 7.47 a game. He kicked 10 6 times that year.
Imagine rolling down to the back or the back line and you see Tony Lockett there and he's kicked 8, 9, 10, 10, and you've got to line up.
It was
on him.
kicking like 13.
Imagine rolling into the dressing rooms after the game in which he kicked his 100th goal, which was against Hawthorn out Waverley, and we walked in and he knew he had to do media. That was when he was at his grumpiest, I reckon, 1991. I still remember this. He came out and he goes, "Right, fellas, make it short and sweet."
But imagine thinking that keeping him to 2 goals a quarter is a good effort.
You know, sorry, I've got to tell another. Can I tell another story? Because it's 1991 as well. Adelaide's first year in the competition. They're playing St Kilda at Moorabbin. Plugger just running amok. I think he might have kicked 13 in that game. Anyway, he fixed up Danny Hughes. He fixed up someone else, Rod Jamison, and then Nigel Smart. Remember Nigel?
Yeah.
Nigel Smart got moved on to Plugger, and fair to say he wasn't too thrilled about the prospect. Graham Corns is coaching, and they said, "Look, you got to hang on to him. You know, tug his jumper, hold him back." And so he started doing it. Plugger gets really angry with him.
Barry Hall's him.
Finally, he turns around and he goes, "You do that one more time, I will knock you out and dump you over the fence." To which Nigel Smart said, "I only need to be told once, Tony."
Tony. I think, comfortably.
Yeah, I think they're...
What a player.
Yeah, he's pretty clearly going to be top. So, given the Saints have only got one flag, and that's not to rub it in, but I think that'll bring context to what I'm about to say next. I think a lot of weight has to be put into their premiership captain. Now, I'm not saying he probably gets picked too. I think there are probably a couple of other players, but I think it's pretty clear Darryl Baldock's got to be on this.
It was on
as
my
a,
list,
as a premiership captain. They've only got one.
119, albeit a shot taken wearing a Collingwood jumper.
I know.
Yes.
This is a hot topic around here. 119 games, 237 goals, 3 best and fairest, 4-time leading goal kicker, and
Hall of Fame legend.
Hall of Fame legend, and something else which people overlook is twice a runner-up in the Brownlow medal.
Yeah.
So I think he's in.
Oh yeah, no. Again, we talk about the icon. We've used the word icon a lot, but not many bigger ones that the face of a club than Darryl Baldock. I mean, even I'm a bit too young to have seen his career, but I've seen highlights. You know, he's sort of undersized as a key defender, key forward, but played in both parts of the ground. Very mobile. You know, the highlights you do see, he's often at ground level trying to paddle the ball around, get possession. So pretty mobile, pretty tough, good in the air. And yeah, just I guess for a side that's only won one a club that's only won one premiership, his name is instantly associated with that club and that premiership. So
for a second, I thought you were going to say Barry Breen for the behind. No, would have been interesting. Anyway, 300 games, 308 goals. So had a decent career himself, but probably not on that list. Someone I want to bring up, and I'm sort of always looking for someone that might not have played as many games as some of these, very long longevities. But you think of iconic St Kilda and iconic St Kilda images and players. I think Nicky Winmar has to be in the conversation.
No, I think he's absolutely in the conversation. He was a fantastic player,
and a great player as well. But also, I think just his involvement and activism and. I mean, the iconic photo. Yeah, it's forever in my memory.
Have you got his numbers there?
Yeah, I do. Nicky Winmar, 230 games for St Kilda, 283 goals, leading goal kicker 1988, 2 times St Kilda best and fairest, VFL Team of the Year 1989, 2 times All Australian, Mark of the Year 1992.
Yeah, he's definitely in the conversation.
You know what's funny?
Indigenous Team of the Century.
When you mentioned iconic images, amazingly, I actually didn't even think of the jumper photo because I was thinking of the marks. I mean, just an incredible player, so gifted.
So. I feel like we have, maybe my fault because I went to Darryl Baldock, but I feel like we've skipped over a few that...
Well, there's two. For me, in the end, if you settle on Lockett and Baldock, for me, the other two are clear-cut.
Okay, so I'm guessing one of them has to be Robert Harvey.
Yep.
A 2-time Brownlow medalist and the last back-to-back winner of the award. So we know how difficult it is to go back-to-back. Yep. Most games for the club, 383.
Yep. 4 best and fairest.
Iconic images, Banger just like medium pacing his way through the middle of the MCG or wherever he was playing.
Yeah.
not overly quick, but just an incredibly
ultra consistent.
And then at a stoppage, standing there hunched over with his hands on his knees before taking off
and
again.
He'd just keep going. And he'd just keep going.
And how many players have you heard talk about how he just run the pants off everyone?
Yeah.
So amazing. And he was doing that from, like he debuted as, I think, a 17-year-old in 1989.
Yeah. So there's 3.
Yeah, but for me, you look at Harvey, and if Harvey's 3, number 4 for me is pretty close to that. And
Okay, I think I know where you're going to go, but I feel like a big name's going to be left off here.
I think I might be going with the big name that you think.
Okay, so I think there's 2. I think it's Nick Riewoldt and Ian Stewart.
Okay, I think I know which way you think I'm going to go, but I'm going to surprise you by not going that way.
Danny Frawley?
No.
Within those 2.
But no, they're the 2 names, right?
So Ian Stewart, I saw him play. He 2 Brownlows with St Kilda, he won another one with Richmond, of course. 127 games, 2 best and fairest, but you cannot go past Nick Riewoldt's record, and it is
336 games, 718 goals.
He's the longest serving captain of the club, 11 years, 6 best and fairest, 5 All-Australians, 4-time leading goal kicker.
If they win the flag when he's in charge, it's not even a question, is it?
Yeah, and just an absolute superstar. I mean, how good was he? And again, he set new standards for territory covered by a key forward. Famous
talk
running
about
up and down.
Harvey's ability to run all day.
So as great as Ian Stewart was, and some people think that's sacrilege leaving him off, but that 127 games and the 2 Brownlows, even that cannot surpass Riewoldt's record.
And this is where it's not to say that Riewoldt is not a good player, but this is where you're standing at the club and you being an icon it'll outweigh the Brownlows in a span of 5 or 6 years. I think so. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, some other names you could rattle off as, iconically St Kilda. I think Lenny Hayes is a little bit one that goes under the radar. Just a real,
Well, another one from the modern era, if we want to keep calling it that, is Stephen Milne. So, 275 games, 574 goals, and certainly in the conversation for best, or, is he on the Mount Rushmore of best small forwards of all time?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So
I'll throw up a couple more names that deserve to be at least mentioned, and they are... Stuart Lowe is one of them. You mentioned Danny Frawley. That's an interesting one because I hadn't really thought about that. But in terms of iconic,
and that may be yes, that's true.
And a lower profile one who also deserves to be mentioned, I think, is Nathan Burke.
Yep. Again, sort of in an era where there maybe wasn't as much success as relative to the club, I guess. But iconic names of that sort of 90s and early 2000s.
So they haven't lacked champion players, have they?
No.
So I ranked them as Lockett, Harvey...
Harvey second.
Yeah. Lockett, Harvey, Baldock, Stewart, Riewoldt. But I'm...
so you've got Stewart in...
Yeah, but I think discussing it out loud, I think it's pretty clear Riewoldt has to go ahead of him.
So, okay.
I think, that's
so
not bad.
My order, I've got Lockett, Baldock, Harvey, Riewoldt.
I'm happy with that too.
Yeah. I think they're the 4. There are a few others that are certainly consideration that we've said. Ian Stewart, very unlucky to miss out with 2 Brownlow medals. But yes, you said Stuart Lowe before. 321 games, 594 goals.
It's not far off Riewoldt's mark. I mean, it's
two All-Australians.
And the biggest hands in football history.
So
Can I tell you another story?
Kicked more.
I'm real out with stories now. Once on the Sunday Age, we got him to do that, and we got the photographer to take a picture of his hand.
And
we ran it life size, and it just about came off the page.
There you go. Should have been a quarterback. Let's move on. We got Sydney to come. So Sydney,
3 to go.
And so interestingly, I think there's a difference here when we talk about Sydney and South Melbourne compared to like Brisbane Lions and Fitzroy.
Yeah. Because it was the transplant of a whole club.
Yes, which
and South Melbourne supporters largely, and I'm old enough to remember, South Melbourne supporters largely got on board, you know, and that's why whenever the Swans play down here, they don't lack support.
It also makes our job, I think, a little bit harder because some of the names that we'll go through very, very soon, but even in more modern times, this is going to be a very tough 4 to come up with.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't really know where to start here.
I'll kick us off. I mean, I think the first two are pretty obvious. I shouldn't say obvious, but I think clear cut for me.
Sure.
And Bob Skilton has to be the first one. 237 games, 412 goals, 3 Brownlow medals.
Yeah.
9-time best and fairest at the club. 9-time best and fairest.
The champ.
3-time leading goal kicker. And captain for 11 years.
Yeah.
He was rover in the AFL team of the century. He is, without question, one of the best players of all time.
Do you know how old I am? I saw him play.
Great.
I saw him play. I did. I saw an Essendon South Melbourne game at the Lake Oval in '71, and that was Skilton's last season as a player. Again, I've seen enough highlights, and then, we were talking before about Robert Flower and that the tragedy of great players who played in unsuccessful eras.
Yeah.
Well, Bob Skilton's second last season, he got to play the only final he ever played, 1970 first semi-final, but. The chimp, a really stocky frame for a little guy, but the reverence in which he's held as a player, let alone as an icon of a whole club.
Yeah.
And speaking about how South Melbourne embraced Sydney, no one's been a better example of it than Bobby Skilton, have they?
It's a great point. And yeah, you talk about his nickname and how his diminutive stature. Like, for a modern comparison, you're probably looking at the same height as Caleb Daniel and what he's been able to do. And
pretty crazy to think.
Yeah, you think 3 Brownlow medals. It's an incredible career.
Yeah.
Number one.
Oh yeah, he's number one.
Yeah,
I think without question. I think number 2 is Adam Goodes.
Yep.
I think he is number 2, and
Iconic Sydney.
And he's not far off number 1. I mean, he's most games 372, 5th most goals 464, 2 Brownlow medals, 2 premiership medals, 3 best and fairest. One of the most versatile players in the history of the sport. He could play literally any position.
Yep.
And not only an icon on the field, but as we know, an icon off it as well. I mean, he is. I don't want to relitigate everything that happened towards the end of his career, but it is a shame with the way he left the sport. But it should never take away from what he was as a player. He was a phenomenal footballer.
No, really well articulated. And the only thing, and I know what you think, and I agree with you 100%. It's not a shame. I mean, it's a disgrace what happened to him. And I think we're all still, I think in 10, 20 years from now, we'll look back on that and go, how did we as a game allow that to happen? I'll say this though, like, as good as he was, I still think of him as a player, and then I look at the numbers and I go, my
wow,
God,
I know.
And and I wonder why, because even when you think about his moments, I mean, you know what the image of Goodes that sticks in my mind? It's that goal in the 2012 grand final, which put them 7 points up on one leg with a torn medial ligament. It's that, and you're right about the versatility too. He played in the ruck, he played as a key forward, he ventured down to defence.
Yeah, he could play everywhere.
I saw him, play in that under-18s grand final where he kicked 6 goals, playing for, I think, who was it, Ballarat Rebels or whoever in 1997. He just a real impact player, and that's leaving aside, all the stuff that he became. Well, whilst he was still playing, he became a real ambassador for Indigenous welfare, and
I think that adds to it. I mean, that is part of what makes him the icon that he is, and that's what makes him.
But also, he gets in on his playing merit alone.
Let's not
blur those lines.
Absolutely.
I mean, the same way
this exercise
we're
is that
Nicky Widmer.
Same exactly right. Yeah.
As I said, I mean, Skilton's record is ridiculous, but I think Goodes is not that far behind.
Yeah.
No, agreed.
So some other names that we can throw up. So Bob Pratt, in terms of goal kicking prowess, some of the numbers. So only 157 games for South Melbourne, but 679 goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the joint.
You know what? I think you've robbed him of a game and
Have
2
I?
goals
Because
he came. I think he missed a season and came back.
You might be right. 158, 681.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I needed to update my little spreadsheet there.
But no, you're spot on. Well, only 1 premiership. So Sydney in the South Melbourne in the early 30s they were called the Foreign Legion, and they were, sort of high-priced recruits assembled from other clubs. And Pratt, Laurie Nash was another one who played in that side, but Pratt was like the forefront of it. And of course, most famously, 150 goals in a season, the record that Peter Hudson equaled in 1971. Hall of Fame legend. And also, what they did with the Coleman medal, actually, people might be unaware of this. So the Coleman medal is known as a Coleman medal from only, I think, 1981 onwards. Prior to that, back to 1950, they did a retrospective Coleman medal, but they decided prior to 1950, because Coleman was only in his second year then, they couldn't call it the Coleman medal. So it's called the Leading Goal Kicker Award, and Pratt won 2 of them, in addition to being South Melbourne's leading goal kicker 6 times. So outstanding record. You read the history books. He was the face of goal kicking. Has to be in there.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I think doing a little bit of research on him, he also went back to Coburg, had a career a little bit later, down the ranks a little bit.
VFA.
Played 40 games for Coburg and kicked 263 goals.
Yeah,
pretty handy.
6.5 a game.
Yeah. Well, I think Laurie Nash, who I mentioned, also he went and played for Camberwell afterwards. And the VFA was sort of an equivalent competition to the VFL at stages.
So we need one more slot,
Yeah.
and this is where I think it gets a little bit interesting, because we could have one of the greatest goal kickers of all time on neither list of 2 teams that he played for and split his games relatively evenly. And that's Lance Franklin.
Yeah.
3rd all-time for the Swans in terms of goals kicked.
486.
172 games. Can you make a case for Buddy?
Yeah, 4 Australians, 2 Colemans, 7-time leading goal kicker. Oh, you certainly can make a case for him.
Can I make a case for a bloke appearing on a second club, Mount Rushmore?
Lockett.
Because as much as
Lockett.
much as I love Buddy, and I know the game's changed, but Franklin has 486 goals for the Swans from 172 games. Plugger 462 goals, just 24 less from 98 games.
Yeah.
The man was a machine.
Iconic Sydney moments.
They're both.
There's a pick at full forward.
Buddy's kicked 1,000.
Buddy's kicked 1,000. Buddy kicked his 1,000.
What about
in Sydney.
Plugger point to get him into the grand final?
Yeah,
there's iconic moments. I just think...
So with the pig one, who are you suggesting? Dale Holmes, the guy that captured the pig. Should he be on Mount Rushmore?
Who did more, and this is a genuine question, who has done more, because this I think has to matter for a club like Sydney, South Melbourne to Sydney, who's done more out of those 2 for the Sydney market?
It's a great point.
Lockett. And absolutely no disrespect to Buddy, but Lockett, because, I don't know, I shouldn't assume you guys are too young, but Sydney were an absolute basket case when Plugger went up there. And they were, they were getting no one going to their games. They went 27 games, losing 27 games in a row in 92, 93. Plugger went up there in the same way Ron Barassi went there as coach. Plugger was a bit of an SOS, we need someone to excite the crowds. So from that point of view alone, within in his second season, they're playing in the grand final. That's had a bigger impact on footy and the popularity of the game there than Franklin did.
Okay, I'll throw up another forward, Barry Hall. So he's a premiership captain, 467 goals, 162 games. Okay, it's not a huge amount, but it's 10 fewer than... He played 10 fewer games than Buddy.
I think both of those guys are more iconically Sydney than Barry Hall. Just when I think of
Buddy and Lockett.
Yeah.
I do, but my 4th on the list you haven't even mentioned yet.
Is it Michael O'Loughlin?
No, but gee, I should have had him on the short list.
Yeah, so
It's
just
tough.
a quick rundown on him. So he's 303 games, which is 4th, 521 goals, which is 2nd, 2 All-Australians, the premiership in 2005, twice a leading goal kicker, Indigenous team of the century.
Wow.
I think and we kind of skipped, so I actually have him 3rd.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so the one I was going to throw up, but geez, you've swayed me there, is Paul Kelly.
Yeah, Paul Kelly.
Iconic captain, 234 games, won the Brownlow, 4 best and fairest, 3 All-Australian.
It's a good shout too.
But geez, O'Loughlin. Give us O'Loughlin's numbers again.
303 games, 4th,
Yeah.
521 goals, 2nd, 2 All-Australian, premiership, 2-time leading goal kicker, Indigenous team of the century. What about Peter Bedford?
Great player, and he's got the 1970 Brownlow medal. How many best and fairest?
5.
Yeah. They were pretty poor side, though.
Skilton. Goods.
Skilton, Goods,
Pratt.
And then we're tossing up between.
Yeah, for me, it's between Kelly and O'Loughlin.
Yeah, I don't think it can be Franklin or Lockett.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think that's
And if that's the case,
If
then
that's the
probably
tiebreaker
not.
that
Probably not Hall.
dual club splits.
I'll
I think
bow
O'Loughlin.
to you on
Mickey
this one.
O.
I'll go O'Loughlin.
He's on.
Yeah.
Gee, not a bad list.
But, geez, many apologies to Kelly, Franklin, Lockett. Well, Lockett's
Can we do
already
the
on.
Mount Rushmore of players that missed out?
Any current players from
So
the
we got
Sonnies?
Hodge,
We're
Koch.
running out
Errol
of
Goulden a chance
we're
for
running
future?
out of rock face to carve them on.
We're on the home stretch. West Coast Eagles. So another club, sort of more of modern times. So
Yeah.
beyond, I guess, when the club's inception was.
35 years, but
Yeah. Well, still older than me. But a lot of names here where you could go either way with again eras. So a short-ish history for the club, but many eras, and just the one player with more than 300 games. So Shannon Hearn, who's no guarantee to be on this list.
I don't have
there's
him.
an obvious
No.
explanation for that, by the way, where any
Well,
West Coast supporters
so you
will be
you
very.
subscribe to this theory?
Oh yeah.
Do you really?
Oh, the travel. It's an incredibly exacting travel burden on them. 4 hours one way, 3 3/4 hours the other way.
Yep. So why
the
Shannon Hearn
time
special?
lag.
Well, I mean, there's always
it's
going to be
just,
some,
I
but
think
yeah.
As time's gone on, players grow up with that. They're more acclimatised to it. But
Okay.
absolutely no doubt in my mind that some of their greatest players would have played up to 50 more games.
Shannon
had they
Hearn
not
doesn't
had
get
the
on
travel burden.
simply for just giving up against the Blues this year when he allowed Charlie Kerner. It was a stepladder.
Can I just say something here? So West Coast have had some, sort of great eras, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But however good they were in the mid-noughties,
Here we go.
and what's their other good era?
Oh,
Sort of-
early
92,
90s?
94.
Yeah.
sorry, I meant more recent.
Oh, 18.
Yeah, I mean, the main point I was going to make was the 91 to 96, 7, 8 era is of significantly greater quality than the mid-noughties
In terms
era.
of players or
both.
How, okay. Well,
Well, I'm interested in hearing your number ones, both of yours.
take it away, Ro.
Yeah, okay, because I hadn't actually settled on a number one, but I will. I'm
Yeah.
going to go. Just toss up. Can I give you 1 and 2?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go your 4.
All right. Okay. My 4. Ben Cousins.
As number one.
Yep.
Wow.
Probably from a sliver from Peter Matera.
Yep. Okay.
They, for me, easily number 1, number 2. Number 3, Glenn Jakovich.
Yep.
And I've come around on this one. I was going to say something that you would have fainted, Jake, but I don't want to look after you.
Jeez, I think I'm about to faint.
So I'm going to go... I'll get Chris Judd in at number 4.
Judd at 4.
But I've just slipped him in. I was
Do
actually...
you have Judd on yours, Jake?
I have him number one on mine. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think he is. As we all know, am a good Carlton man. I still think of Chris Judd as a West Coast player.
Yeah.
When I think of Chris Judd,
Yeah.
West Coast. He's iconically West Coast. He's a premiership captain, a Brownlow medalist, a Norm Smith medalist, AFL MVP, All-Australians, club champion, Ross Glendinning medals. The only knock, if you want to call it a knock, is the 134 games, 138 goals. Like
It's a big knock,
it
though.
was a short. Yeah, but we've factored this in for at least half a dozen other players.
This is a serious question. I don't mean this condescendingly at all. Are you old enough to have seen and appreciated Cousins and Matera? No, not so much Cousins. Sorry, Matera.
Matera's 2. Matera, I think, is 2
Yeah.
on my list.
What about Jakovich?
So Matera's 2, and then after that, I'm debating Jakovich, Cousins, and Josh Kennedy, who I think deserves a shout as
Okay,
well.
there's 2 more we need to mention.
Yeah,
in
so-
this discussion.
Iconically West Australian.
Okay,
Didn't
3
play
more.
as many
Yeah,
games,
yeah.
but kicked goals.
Great full forward who, 514 goals from 150 games, undersold simply because of his contemporaries at the time. I mean, people, like, it's just staggering how many great goal kickers there were in the early 90s. You know, 1993, you had Ablett, Dunstall and Modra all kicked over 120 goals. The only reason Plugger didn't was because he was injured, missed half a season. He still kicked 70-something. Yeah, in addition to that, you had Peter Sumich, Kernahan, Carey.
Yep.
It was insane. But, so, yeah, I'm happy for Sumich to be in the discussion. The other two who need to have their names at least put up there.
Dean Cox.
Guy McKenna.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
267 games, 2 flags, 2 best and fairest, 3 All-Australian. Rebounding, attacking, smart halfback flank. Great player. And not so much a record, though it's a pretty decent record, but iconic status, John Worsfold.
How much of that is the coaching? I mean,
No, not at all. 209 games,
Okay.
2 premierships.
think-
He was one of the great captains.
I know that
John
you're
Worsfold.
very anti-modern times, but I think Josh Kennedy...
I'm not anti-modern.
No, in terms of this West Coast League, I think Josh Kennedy...
Josh Kennedy.
712
give us a record.
goals.
Yeah, 271 games, which is
271,
sixth.
yeah, okay.
712 goals, the
Yeah,
most. Premiership
yeah,
player,
comfortably.
8-time leading goal kicker, 2 Coleman medals, 3 All-Australians.
One of the great modern forwards.
Yes.
Always talked about with Buddy, with...
Okay.
And whether you want to call it a bit
All right.
of poetry or symmetry, but the player they got for Chris Judd.
Judd, yeah.
So here's what I'm proposing. Kennedy in for Judd.
I can't,
Number one on the list.
I can't not have Judd
No,
on it.
I know.
I don't know
I'm
how
just
you
baiting.
can't not have Judd on it. And in all seriousness, I know that
Sorry, give us Kennedy's numbers again.
So he's 271 games, which
Yeah.
ranks 6th at West Coast.
So Djakovic 276, yeah.
Yeah, and then 712 goals, which is the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 Colemans, 3 All-Australians, 8-time leading goal kicker, premiership.
Hang on, 2 Colemans.
Yep,
How many All-Australians?
3.
Yeah, Djakovic 2. Best and fairest? None.
Don't believe he won a best and
Djakovic
fairest.
4 as a key defender. In a side that put a premium on defence.
I don't know how.
It's tough.
Yeah, no, it is tough.
I don't know how Chris.
You've bowled me over a bit with Kennedy. In fairness, I really hadn't sort of thought about that, and I should have.
It's funny. He's one of those. It's like Jack Revolt. It's
Creeps up
It's
on
like
you.
Tom Hawkins.
It creeps up
He
on you.
creeps up on you.
Yeah.
Djakovic, Matera, Judd. Where else were we?
Okay, I accept
Cousins.
your argument on
Cousins.
Judd. I think Judd's lucky. Cousins has to be there.
Are we happy with Djakovic, Matera, Judd, Cousins?
Hang on, say it again.
Djakovic, Matera, Judd, Cousins, and Kennedy misses out.
Kennedy misses out. This is good radio.
I'd have-
Breathing.
I'd have Kennedy over
Sorry.
Djakovic.
Kennedy over
So
Djakovic.
hang on, what's the biggest wow stat for Kennedy apart from the goals? How
Well,
many-
but
how
that's
many-
a
Longevity,
big-
271 games, 6th all time.
How many All-Australian?
3.
Yeah, right. I can live with Kennedy over Djakovic.
2 Colemans.
So who's number 1? Matera?
I had Cousins.
Cousins?
I'd
Okay,
have
so
Judd.
let's compare. Let's compare. Oh no.
No, we haven't got time for this. We've got to keep moving. Cousins, Matera, Judd,
Yeah.
Kennedy.
Yeah. Okay.
Ben
yeah.
Cousins. So we're happy with Cousins number 1?
I wouldn't have Cousins number 1. I would have Matera or Judd as number
All
1.
right, I can live with Matera. No way, Judd. I can live with Matera as
crazy.
1. Matera 1, Cousins 2, Judd 3, Kennedy 4.
I tell you what, we'll put Matera 1, but Judd's got to go 2. Judd's got to be ahead of Cousins.
Matera, Judd, Cousins.
Hang on a sec. Sorry.
Kennedy.
I'm sorry, Matt, but why? Hang on. Okay, here's what I've got for Judd. 134 games. It's not that much.
Yeah, I know.
Hang on now, let me hear me out.
We need to keep
1
moving.
premiership, 1 Brownlow, 1 Norm Smith, 2 best and fairest, 2 Australians. Here's Cousins. 238 games, 1 premiership, 1 Brownlow, 4 best and fairest, twice as many, 6 All-Australians.
Yeah, but
3 times
But
as
of
many.
course, it's going to be.
Okay.
Of course, he's going to have more because he played longer. Like,
But
of course, that's going to be more. But in terms of the quality of the player and the legacy that they left, it's Chris Judd is ahead of Ben Cousins.
We're arguing
in my
over
opinion.
semantics now because they're all on the list, but we just need to work out the order. We need to move on. So it's Matera, Cousins, Judd, Kennedy.
That's what I'd vote for. Come on, I gave you Kennedy over Djakovic.
like your
so
bathroom
give me
back
All right,
and
we'll do that.
forth
We'll do that. We'll do that.
All right, Last club, the Western Bulldogs, Footscray, whatever you want to call them, depending on when you grew up.
Oh, God, this one's tough. This one is really tough.
Yeah, we're ending with another tough one. And thank you so much for all of you who have tuned in, listened, watched, or just skipped to the end if you're a Doggies fan. It's been good fun. But it has been a 3-year labour of love, and it feels like it, Jake.
Absolutely. Ready for a nap, that's for sure.
This is tough because there are a lot of massive names, as there are with a lot of other clubs. But
surely number one is clear.
Well, it's a Hall of Fame legend as well.
Yeah.
So we have to start.
I don't think the Dogs is that difficult, to be honest.
Oh, don't you?
No. I think, the names are good.
The quality's high. I think kind of to your point about Hawthorn, the bar is high.
Yeah. Okay, so we all agree number one is Ted Whitten.
Yep, 321 games, 360 goals, a premiership player, a 5-time club best and fairest, 4-time leading goal kicker.
Who also played at centre-half back as well as centre-half forward.
And probably the most notable thing of Ted Whitten is
Mr. Football.
Mr. Football, but captain of the club for 14 seasons. A very famous name.
Yeah, and like the most ridiculously firm handshake in the history of handshakes.
I feel like this is the lead into another story.
No, I can't do it. I exceeded my quota.
And iconic images again. The way that he kicked the football is just sort of, for someone who didn't watch a lot of or has seen much of his.
It's a great statue, isn't it?
Isn't it? It's wonderful, and it's the Mr. Football. We talked about some of the nicknames at Richmond's club. That's it, right? That's the one. Mr. Football. How could you not have Mr. Football?
Who do we say? Who was Mrs. Football?
Ron Barassi.
That
was a joke. It was a joke.
They're probably both on the Mount Rushmore of the AFL.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
For iconic.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Anyway, we're in agreement there.
Yeah, I think he's pretty clearly on, and it's been a theme. I don't think maybe the last one with West Coast, but I reckon 17 of the 18 clubs, it's been a pretty clear-cut one.
I think we should do an all-time Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
well,
not today. All right, I probably know where Rohan's going to go next, so I'll go with...
That's funny, because I don't.
I'll go with Brad Johnson as my next one I'm going to throw up.
Number 2.
Iconically,
I'm not
Dogs,
doing it necessarily in order, but very iconic Dogs. He's the most games, 364.
Yeah.
The second most goals, 558.
Second most.
Yeah, and I think that surprises people. The fact he's 364 games,
5 leading goal
558.
kicker.
Yeah, 6-time All-Australian, 5-time kicker, as you say, and a 3-time Bulldogs club champion.
We just got to... We haven't said this too. There's a bit of an asterisk with All-Australian because if you're an older player...
Yes.
It's, All-Australian used to just be awarded in interstate games. So, there's only 1 or 2
Not
a year.
much opportunity, yeah.
Exactly. And then they had like the team of the year. But the All-Australian gong, as we know it, has really only been a thing since, I think, 1990.
Yeah, which is why for some of the older players, you would not have heard us sort of reel off there.
Well, okay, so for the Footscray Bulldogs example... when you said Brad Johnson, 6 All-Australian, and now this guy has to be a contender, Dougie Hawkins, 329 games, leading goal kicker, 1 best and fairest, but no All-Australian gongs. But that goes to what I'm talking about. Whereas under new guidelines, he probably would have had a few.
Same era to Brad Johnson, but Chris Grant, in terms of careers, they kind of look very similar as well.
Yeah.
So Johnson, 364 games. Grant, 341 for the Dogs.
Yeah.
Goals, 558, 554.
Wow.
We're getting
the Grant goal number surprised me.
So how Johnson's second on goals for Bulldogs?
558 and Grant third, 554.
Right. So number 1 is?
Number 1 is Simon Beasley.
Right.
154 games, 575 goals, a Coleman medal and 7-time leading goal kicker. I mean, he's another name, certainly a consideration. But is he
No, probably didn't play for quite long enough. Kicked 100 goals for him in 85.
Yeah, I don't know how big of a name he is in football. I don't know. I don't think he... For some guys, like we've mentioned, that only played between 100 and 150 games, their name is so... It carries so much weight. I don't know if it does with Beasley, but I could be wrong.
Certainly not because he wasn't a great player.
No.
Charlie Sutton?
Charlie Sutton. Actually, give me the numbers on that, because in terms of icons, you know...
Well,
like
I mean, we're maybe blending playing and coaching a little bit here as well, but played 173 games, kicked 65 goals, but was Premiership Captain Coach 1954, Team of the Century, leading goal kicker 51, captain for 5 years.
He's certainly a revered and iconic name in that club's history, but I don't think that's good enough a record to overhaul the others we're talking about.
More iconically Dogs than Johnson, or...
Yeah.
I'll give you a name.
He probably is more iconically Dogs, but the
I think
playing
he gets
record...
I think we've shown before the playing records...
I've got to throw up one here that it's just ridiculous, and I think he's going to miss out, but like it's ridiculous that people won't even mention him. 5 All-Australians, 7 best and fairest, 324 games.
Scott West.
Scotty West.
Superstar.
Yeah.
Runner-up in the Brownlow that he probably should have won in 2000.
Well, I reckon I can raise here. What about the Bont? What about the Bont right now? So
the trajectory is good.
Yeah, forget the trajectory right now. Right now.
Okay, right now.
Okay, well, why not right now? You're too quick to say no.
Yeah.
He's already ahead of some of these names that you've mentioned.
Okay, so
he's a premiership player.
Yeah.
He's a 5-time All-Australian.
Yeah.
A 5-time club best and fairest.
Yeah.
2-time AFL MVP. Captain of the Bulldogs since 2020. 216 games, 200 goals. Twice runner-up in the Brownlow.
Yeah.
There are raps on him to be the greatest Bulldog of all time, and that is no mean feat to achieve or to be talked about in that way, given some of the names that we've talked about.
I think he's already...
You think he's on the list?
I think he's already clearly one of the 4 best players to play for the club. But is he
one of the
4
iconic
faces of the club yet? I would say yes. The only names I'm looking at here that I think are definitely got to be ahead of him are Witten, Johnson, and Hawkins.
Hawkins, you reckon?
I think Sutton's got to be on that list.
Gee, I reckon if you've got Johnson on that list, you have to have
Grant.
Almost. So I had Dougie Hawkins on my list, but I could almost live with Grant on that list rather than Dougie. Sorry, Dougie.
So Witten, Johnson, Grant, Bont?
Bont? Oh, it sounds weird when you say it.
Witten, Johnson, Grant, Bont. Yeah, Bont, it's tempting.
Well, who are you wanting in ahead of him is the question.
I think Premiership Captain Coach Charlie Sutton. I know he didn't play as many games, but this is like a club that hasn't had a lot of success.
Yeah.
He was part of it.
I reckon most Bulldogs
Iconically
fans,
Bulldogs.
if you had Bontempelli ahead of Charlie Sutton as an icon, they'd...
Let us know, Dogs fans.
I think I'm going with Matt on this one. I think Sutton has to be on there.
So I think it's Witten.
But we're just getting him on there, so I think he goes number 4.
Witten, Johnson.
Grant, Sutton.
Grant and Sutton.
Yeah.
Surely
we have very humble apologies to Scott West, who doesn't
been many,
get on for
many
7
humble
best
apologies
and
throughout
fairest.
this exercise. I feel like every second club we're apologising to 2 or 3 legends of the game.
Yeah, I think I think Bontempelli is pretty stiff.
Yeah,
I'm not arguing with you.
Oh, I think you are. Because you've.
I think you are really.
I think you've. I think you've been both very quick to dismiss him. I think what he's done, and it's not trajectory. I'm not projecting because I think if we're saying in 5 years' time,
He'll be on it.
He's going to be on it. I think. You'd be surprised if he wasn't.
Yeah.
But I think right now, if he retired right now, I'm not sure he's done enough to get on it.
Give us Sutton's numbers again.
Played 173 games, 65 goals, Premiership captain.
Stop there. Hang on, stop there. So Bont 216 games, more 200 goals, 3 times more.
Yeah.
Next.
Premiership captain coach.
Okay, so Bont was a premiership player.
What's great team of the century?
Well, he's
leading goal kicker. Captain for 6 years.
Okay, so Bont's been captain for 4. He's got 5 All-Australians.
So can't talk to me in 2 years.
What about best and fairest?
How many best and fairest?
That's a great question. 1.
Bont's got 5. How many AFL MVPs? Bont's got 2.
It wasn't an award.
Yeah, well, that's exactly the thing.
All right.
I think it's got to be Bont.
I'm happy to go with Bont.
I think it's got to be Bont.
Bont's on.
I think it has to be.
Dogs fans, Jay Michaels ESPN.
Twice
on Twitter.
runner-up in the Brownlow medal. So this is the other thing. If he polls up like 2 votes more in 2 years, he's a dual Brownlow medalist, and it's not even a question. We might even be putting him number 1.
Oh, if Mark McCurry doesn't miss that shot in the goal square, you guys don't play in a grand final. We win 2 flags in a row.
All right, so where are we finishing up? Witten, Johnson, Grant, Bontempelli.
Yeah.
I think so.
And
Let us know.
Sutton family address all
Sutton,
correspondence.
Hawkins. You like Dougie Hawkins, don't you?
I love Dougie Hawkins.
Stiff.
He knows I love him. Sorry, Dougie.
I think that's all we've got time for.
Oh,
It's been a
goodness.
massive day. It's been
great
good fun.
In all seriousness,
This has been
great,
good fun.
a fantastic exercise.
But it
And
is-
well done, Jake. It was your baby and great.
Yeah,
Well,
so
you had to
Jake-
let me get Bont in at the end there, I think.
Jake's been banging on about this this Mount Rushmore idea since COVID days. So to finally be able to get it off the ground and actually in the studio, to be fair as well.
Yeah, and we wanted to
Not that
do
you want
it.
to see our ugly mugs all the time, but it's just a bit more interactive that way. And
I think it'll look a bit better. And also, as Matt said a few times throughout the episodes, please give us the feedback. I'd love to know what other people are thinking, other
Yeah.
names. Maybe there are other names that we
Civil
didn't
feedback.
Absolutely,
we didn't
yeah.
think of. Hopefully not. But it's difficult to do. And I think we'll try and put all this into written form as well and have it on the website.
we'll publish a list, maybe just with a short blurb on each player, and that can be your job over Christmas, maybe.
Yeah.
Great. To all of you that have stuck around throughout the however many hours we've been going for, thank you very much. It's been good fun. This is very, very off-season content, obviously. We are very well aware of that. But I think sometimes it's nice to kind of think about this and do think about, current legends, past legends, and where everyone fits, because our great game, it's a pleasure to watch and it's a pleasure to be a part of. And
It is. There's a whole lot of stuff we should be doing here. I think we should do, top 10 grand finals. And,
stay tuned. We may be back. Who knows? But to everyone at home, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll speak to you in the next episode of the podcast.